The final battle began at the galactic core, where space itself was twisted into impossible shapes by the concentrated presence of the Devourers. They had built something there that hurt to look at. A breeding complex the size of a solar system, designed to spawn enough of their kind to consume every galaxy in the known universe. Captain Taman Park, now more ghost than human, led the assault fleet through dimensions that had no names. Around him, 10,000 transformed humans moved like living weapons through the twisted battlefield. They were no longer recognizable as the species they had once been, but they remembered their purpose: protect humanity by becoming something humanity would fear. All units, remember the mission. Tai Min's voice reached his soldiers through channels that existed outside normal communication. We are not here to win gloriously. We are here to end this threat completely. Commander Wu Jin Song moved through the formation like a dark angel, his 500-year experience making him the most dangerous thing on a battlefield full of nightmares. The breeding complex has 3 critical points. Destroy them simultaneously and the entire structure will collapse into itself. The Ghost Fleet split into 3 attack groups. Taemin led the first group toward the core of the complex, where reality was so twisted that normal physics had given up entirely. They fought through swarms of hybrid devourers, creatures that had once been human but were now something much worse. Captain, Jiwan's voice came through their link. I'm reading familiar biosignatures in these enemies. These aren't just consumed humans. These are people from the colonies that disappeared. Can they be saved? Taemin asked, even as he destroyed 3 hybrid creatures with weapons that fired concentrated impossibility. Negative. The conversion process erased their original consciousness. What's left are just biological memories being used as weapons. The knowledge that they were fighting their own people, transformed into weapons against humanity, filled the ghosts with something beyond anger. They began fighting with a precision that was beautiful and terrible to witness. Minho John's unit reached the second target point and began the complex process of unraveling reality itself. The Devourers had built their complex by rewriting the laws of physics in the local area, so destroying it required undoing those changes piece by piece. This is like performing surgery on the universe, Minho reported. But I think we can do it. The third attack group, led by Commander Wu Jin Song, encountered something unexpected at their target point. A massive hybrid creature that had once been Admiral Kyung-Soo Jang himself. You came too late, the thing that had been Admiral Kyung-Soo said in a voice that echoed with the hunger of the void. We consumed your leadership while you were playing with transformation chambers. Earth fell 3 days ago. Commander Wu Jin Song felt something that might have been grief, if ghosts could still feel such things. Then we're not fighting to save what was. We're fighting to make sure something can still exist in the future. The battle at the galactic core raged across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Reality twisted and broke and rebuilt itself as the ghosts and devourers fought, with forces that could unmake stars. The ghost weapons weren't just advanced technology. They were crystallized concepts given physical form. They fired bullets made of ending and launched missiles constructed from never was. Dr. So Young Kang, monitoring the battle from the last surviving human outpost, watched readings that should have been impossible. The energy signatures are off the scale. They're not just fighting. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of reality in the combat zone. Su Bin Lee, still serving as the communication link between the ghosts and normal humanity, was struggling to maintain contact. The signals are becoming increasingly difficult to interpret. The ghosts are changing even more, becoming something that exists so far outside normal reality that we can barely detect them. As the 3 ghost attack groups reached their targets, simultaneously something unprecedented happened. The Devourers, faced with an enemy that could match their reality-warping abilities, experienced something they had never felt before: fear. They're afraid, Taemin reported with something that might have been amazement. For the first time in their existence, they're encountering something that they can't consume, can't corrupt, and can't escape from. The Devourer breeding complex began to collapse as its reality anchors were destroyed. But instead of simply falling apart, It imploded into itself, creating a cascade effect that spread across the galactic core. The Devourers were being pulled back into the void between realities where they belonged. Commander Wu Jin Song led the final assault on the core of the complex, where the oldest and most powerful Devourer waited. This creature had existed since the beginning of time, consuming universe after universe, and it had never been defeated. "You are impressive little weapons," it said to the approaching ghosts. "But we are eternal. We will return when you are gone, and we will consume everything you died to protect." "Maybe," Commander Wu Jin Song replied. "But not today, and not easily." What followed was not just a battle, but a contest between two different concepts of existence. The ancient Devourer represented entropy, consumption, and the eventual end of all things. The ghosts represented preservation, protection, and the refusal to accept extinction. When the dust settled and reality reasserted itself around the galactic core, the Devourer breeding complex was gone. The creatures themselves were either destroyed or banished back to the dark spaces between galaxies. The immediate threat was over, but the cost was clear to everyone involved. "Ghost Fleet, report status," Subin called through the communication link. The response came from Tai Min, but his voice was so changed that she barely recognized it. "Mission accomplished, threat neutralized, but we can't come home." "Why not, Commander?" Wu Jin Song answered. "Look at us through your sensors, Subin. Tell me what you see." Subin ran a full scan of the returning ghost fleet. What she saw made her understand immediately why they could never return to normal human society. The ghosts had become something magnificent and terrible, beings of pure purpose that existed partially outside normal space-time. They were no longer human in any meaningful sense, and they would always be too dangerous to live among normal humans. "Where will you go?" she asked quietly. "To the edge of everything," Tai Min replied. "We'll watch the spaces between galaxies, the dark places where threats like the Devourers might return. We'll be humanity's eternal guardians, standing watch in the void." Da Yun Han, now serving as the primary liaison between normal humanity and the Ghost Fleet, established the final communication protocols. "How will we contact you if we need you again?" "You won't need to," Commander Wu Jin Song said. "We'll know. We'll always be watching." The Ghost Fleet moved to the galactic rim, establishing bases in the dark spaces where normal humans could never survive. They became legends, stories told to children about the monsters who protected humanity by becoming worse monsters themselves. Occasionally, when new threats emerged from the dark between the stars, the threats would simply disappear without explanation. Normal humans would never know that their ancient guardians were still watching, still protecting, still paying the price for humanity's survival. In the end, humanity was safe, because a few thousand volunteers had given up their humanity to preserve it. They had become the ultimate weapons not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything that made them human to protect everything that made humanity worth saving. The war was over. The vigil had begun. And in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, humanity's ghostly guardians kept their eternal watch, ensuring that their people would never again face extinction alone. The transformation chamber aboard the Forge of Wrath hummed with alien energies that hurt to look at directly. Captain Tae Min Park stood before the entrance, wearing the biosuit that would allow the ghost conversion process to work. Around him, hundreds of other volunteers prepared for the same fate. "Are you sure about this?" Ji-won Choi asked. She had volunteered as well, but seeing the transformation chambers up close made the reality of their choice clear. "No," Tai Min said honestly, "but I'm sure about what happens to humanity if we don't do this." Commander Wu Jin Song was working at the control systems, bringing the ancient machinery back to full power. "The process takes 6 hours," he explained to the volunteers. "When you wake up, you'll still have your memories and your personality, but everything else will be different. You'll see reality from multiple angles simultaneously. You'll remember things that never happened and forget things that did, and you'll be capable of hurting enemies that normal humans can't even touch." Corporal Minho Jeon, A young soldier who had volunteered from the Marines raised his hand. "Sir, will we still be human?" Commander Wu Jinsong paused in his work. "That depends on how you define human. You'll have human origins and human goals, but your existence will be fundamentally different from normal human existence. You'll be something new." Admiral Kyung-Soo's voice came through the communication system. "All units, we're receiving reports that the Devourers have accelerated their advance. They've consumed 7 more systems in the past 12 hours. We're out of time." Taemin looked at his volunteers. "Anyone who wants to back out, now's the time." Nobody moved. One by one, they entered the transformation chambers. Taemin was the last to go, looking back at the control room where Su-Bin Lee was monitoring their communications. She couldn't become a ghost because her job required her to maintain contact with normal human command structures. "Take care of yourself, Su-Bin," he said through the intercom. "You too, Captain. Come back to us." "If I can," he said, knowing it was a promise he might not be able to keep. The transformation chamber sealed around him, and darkness fell. But it wasn't a normal darkness. This darkness moved and whispered and seemed to reach inside his mind with cold fingers. He felt his consciousness being pulled apart and rebuilt according to new patterns. Time became meaningless. Sometimes he felt like he had been in the chamber for minutes, sometimes for years. He began to remember things that had never happened, training exercises on worlds that didn't exist, conversations with people who had never been born, battles against enemies that lived between the spaces of reality. When he finally woke up, everything was different. The chamber opened and Taemin stepped out into a world that looked the same but felt completely wrong. He could see the normal version of the Forge of Wrath, but he could also see 7 other versions of it existing in the same space. Some were ruins, some were under construction, and one was filled with the ghosts of all the soldiers who had died during the First War. "How do you feel?" Commander Wu Jinsong asked. Taemin considered the question. Feel was not quite the right word anymore. "Different, I can see more. Too much. That will stabilize in a few hours." "What about the others?" Taemin looked around the chamber and saw his transformed volunteers, but he also saw past versions of them, future versions, and versions that existed only as possibilities. Ji-Won, Choi was adjusting to her new senses by examining the machinery around them. Min Ho-jeon was staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "We're ready," Taemin said, and he knew it was true. They were no longer human in the normal sense, but they were exactly what humanity needed them to be. The first battle came sooner than expected. As the new ghosts were still learning to use their abilities, alarms began ringing throughout the forge. Commander Wu Jinsong's voice came through the communication system. "All ghosts to battle stations. The Devourers have found us." Taemin and his unit moved to the observation deck and saw something that would have driven normal humans insane. Space itself was being eaten. Where the Devourers passed, reality simply ended, leaving behind a hungry void that reached out with invisible tentacles toward anything that still existed. "My God," Ji-Won whispered. "No gods here," Commander Wu Jinsong said grimly. "Only predators and prey. The question is which one we choose to be." The Devourers moved toward the Forge of Wrath like a living shadow. They had no ships, no technology. In the normal sense, they were holes in reality that could think and hunt and consume. "All ghost units deploy," Taemin ordered. What followed was not a battle in any normal sense. The ghosts moved through space without ships existing partially. Outside normal physics, they fought enemies that could not be seen or touched by normal means, using weapons that fired bullets made of crystallized impossibility and launched missiles of pure concept. Taemin found himself face to face with something that had once been a devourer but was now something worse, a hybrid creature that combined devourer hunger with human intelligence. It spoke to him in a voice that came from inside his own mind. "You taste familiar, little ghost. We consumed your kind before. You are seasoned with old fears and ancient desperation." "Then you know how this ends," Taemin replied, raising his weapon. The battle lasted hours or minutes or days. Time moved differently during ghost combat. Reality bent and twisted around the combatants as they fought with forces that normal physics could not explain. When it was over, the Devourers were retreating, but they were not defeated. They had been testing the new ghosts, learning about their capabilities and weaknesses. Commander Wu Jin-song's assessment was grim. They're stronger than before, much stronger. They've learned from their defeat 500 years ago. Can we still win? Taemin asked. Unknown. But we can make them pay such a price for every victory that they might decide to go hunt easier prey. Subin's voice came through the communication system. Captain, Admiral Kyung-soo is requesting a status report. Taemin tried to remember how to communicate with normal humans. It was harder now. His thoughts moved in patterns that didn't fit normal language. Tell the Admiral that we're operational, but that this war will be longer and harder than the first. 1. The Devourers have evolved. Understood, Captain. As Taemin looked out at the stars, he could see the war spreading across the galaxy. Normal humans were fighting and dying against an enemy they couldn't even perceive, while the ghosts engaged in battles that took place in the spaces between reality. Ji-won approached him, her new senses allowing her to move through the twisted geometry of the forge's interior. Captain, I've been analyzing the enemy's attack patterns. They're not just trying to consume us, they're trying to corrupt us. Explain. The Devourers we fought today, some of them had human characteristics. I think they're turning consumed humans into weapons against us. Taemin felt something that might have been fear if ghosts could still feel fear. Then we're not just fighting to save humanity. We're fighting to prevent humanity from becoming the weapon that destroys itself. Commander Wu Jin-song joined them at the observation deck. The real battle hasn't started yet. What we fought today was just reconnaissance. They're preparing something bigger. How much bigger? Taemin asked. Big enough to consume entire galaxies if we don't stop them here. The ghosts of humanity's new war machine were ready for battle, but they were about to face an enemy that had learned from 500 years of planning. The question was whether humanity's ultimate weapons would be enough, or whether the cure would prove worse than the disease. Dr. So-Young Kang stared at the data on her screen and felt her blood turn cold. As Earth's leading expert on alien biology, she had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. The tissue samples recovered from the edge of the missing colony zones defied everything she knew about life. It's not just consuming organic matter, she told the emergency council meeting. It's rewriting the basic structure of reality at the molecular level. Where these things pass, the laws of physics seem to change. Admiral Kyung-soo sat at the head of the table, looking older than his years. Around him sat the leaders of Earth's military and scientific communities. At the far end of the table, Commander Wu Jin-song waited patiently, his presence making everyone uncomfortable. Explain what you mean by rewriting reality, Admiral Kyung-soo said. Dr. So-Young Kang activated a holographic display showing molecular structures. Normal matter has predictable behavior. Atoms bond in specific ways. Energy follows known patterns. But in these samples, I'm seeing bonds that shouldn't exist and energy patterns that violate basic laws. Could it be unknown technology? Asked General Min Jae Lee, head of Earth's Defense Forces. No, sir. Technology works within the laws of physics, even if we don't understand it. This is something different. This is matter that exists according to different rules entirely. Commander Wu Jin-song spoke for the first time during the meeting. The Devourers don't just consume things. They replace the space that things occupied with something else, a space where they make the rules. That's impossible, said Dr. Chang-ho Park, Earth's chief physicist. Is it? Commander Wu Jin-song asked. Your quantum physics already tells you that reality is more flexible than it appears. The Devourers simply learned how to bend it to their will. Admiral Kyung-soo looked tired. Commander, you've seen these things fight before. Tell us what we're really facing. Commander Wu Jin-song stood and walked to the holographic display. With a gesture, the molecular diagrams were replaced by star maps, showing the first war zone. The Devourers are not a species in the way you understand it. They're more like a virus that infects reality itself. When they arrive in a system, they don't attack immediately. First, they study. They learn how that reality works, how the inhabitants think, how their technology functions. He manipulated the display to show a timeline. Then they begin small changes, a few altered memories here, some missing records there. Technology that suddenly stops working the way it used to. People start forgetting things, but they don't realize they're forgetting. How is that possible? Dr. So Young Kang asked. Because the devourers don't just change what is, they change what was. In their presence, history itself becomes fluid. The people in those missing colonies didn't just die. From the perspective of the universe, they never existed at all. General Min Jae Lee leaned forward. But we remember them. We have records. Do you? Commander Wu Jin Song asked quietly. Lieutenant Bitna Yoon, check your files on the Harmony colony again. Bitna Yoon worked on her datapad for several minutes, her frown deepening. Admiral, this is strange. My files show that Harmony system was surveyed but never settled. According to this, it was deemed unsuitable for colonization due to radiation levels. But you had settlement records just yesterday, Admiral Kyung-soo said. Sir, I have no record of ever having settlement data for Harmony system. According to my files, I've never even heard of a place called Harmony Colony. The room fell silent. Commander Wu Jin Song nodded grimly. It's already starting. The longer the devourers operate in an area, the more reality changes to accommodate their presence. Soon, none of you will remember that those systems ever had colonies. Dr. Chang-ho Park was frantically checking his own records. This is impossible. Information can't just change. Information doesn't change, Commander Wu Jin Song corrected. Reality changes. The information adapts to match the new reality. Captain. Taemin Park, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. Commander, you said that ghosts could fight these things. How? The ghost program doesn't just enhance human bodies. It anchors human consciousness outside normal space-time. A ghost exists in multiple realities simultaneously, so they can't be erased by reality manipulation. What does that mean in practical terms? Admiral Kyung-soo asked. Commander Wu Jin Song was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. It means we remember things that never happened, and see things that don't exist. It means we can act on information that has been erased from reality, and it means we can hurt things that normal humans can't even perceive. At what cost? Dr. So Young Kang asked. Everything that makes us human. Ghosts don't dream, don't feel emotions the way you do, and don't form relationships with normal humans. We exist in a state between life and death, between real and unreal. We're conscious weapons, nothing more. The communication system activated, and Da Yun Han's voice came through the speakers. Admiral, urgent message from the outer colonies. The new Shanghai system is reporting. Sir, they're reporting that their sun is going out. That's impossible, Dr. Chang-ho Park said. Stars don't just go out. Patch me through to New Shanghai, Admiral Kyung-soo ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was calm but wrong, just like the previous transmissions. This is Governor He-jin Choi of New Shanghai. I wanted to report that our system star has completed its natural death cycle. It was always a dying star. I don't know why anyone thought it was stable enough to support colonies. We're evacuating to our backup worlds. Admiral Kyung-soo looked at his files. New Shanghai's star is a young, stable yellow star. It should burn for billions more years. Commander Wu Jin Song shook his head. Not anymore. In the current reality, New Shanghai's star was always dying. The colonists there will evacuate to worlds that they believe have always existed, but which were actually just created by the devourers. How do we fight an enemy that can change the rules of existence? General Min Jae Lee asked. You become something that exists outside those rules, Commander Wu Jin Song said. You activate the Forge of Wrath and create new ghosts, Admiral. Kyung-soo looked around the table at his advisors and commanders. How many people would we need to convert? For a threat this size, at least 10,000, maybe more. And they would all become like you? Commander Wu Jin Song met his eyes steadily. They would become what humanity needs them to become. They would give up their humanity to save humanity. Dr. So Young Kang was studying the biological data again. Admiral, I'm seeing acceleration in the rate of change. Whatever is happening out there, it's speeding up. We're losing 3 systems a day now. And the rate is increasing, Bitnayun added. At this pace, they'll reach the core worlds within 2 months, not 6. Admiral Kyung-soo stood up slowly. Commander, if we activate the Ghost program, can we be sure that the new ghosts will remain loyal to humanity? Ghosts are created with one purpose: to protect humanity from threats that normal humans cannot face. That purpose is burned into our consciousness at the molecular level. We cannot betray that mission even if we wanted to. But after the threat is gone, Commander Wu Jin, Song was quiet for a long moment. After the First War, the surviving ghosts chose to sleep rather than live among normal humans. We understood that we had become something that would always be feared and never be fully trusted. That choice would be available to the new ghosts as well. General Min Jai Lee looked at the star maps showing the expanding zone of missing systems. Admiral, our conventional forces are being moved into position, but frankly, I don't see how we can fight an enemy we can't even perceive properly. Then we need soldiers who can perceive them, Admiral Kyung-soo said quietly. The room fell silent. Again. Everyone understood what decision was being made. Commander Wu Jin Song spoke into the silence. Admiral, if you're going to activate the Ghost program, it needs to be done quickly. Every day you wait, the Devourers grow stronger and more established in this reality. Soon even ghosts might not be enough to stop them. Admiral Kyung-soo looked around the table one more time, meeting the eyes of each person present. May God forgive us for what we're about to become. The shuttle bay of the Earth Command flagship Determination was cold and unwelcoming. Admiral Kyung-soo Jang stood waiting as Tai Min, his crew, and Commander Wu Jin Song were escorted from their shuttle by armed guards. The Admiral's face was hard as stone. Captain Park, you were ordered to map the dead zone, not to wake up sleeping nightmares, Admiral Kyung-soo said without greeting. We responded to a distress signal, sir, Tai Min replied. Standard procedure. There was no distress signal. That structure has been monitored for 300 years. It's been silent the entire time. Commander Wu Jin Song stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, your monitoring equipment isn't advanced enough to detect forged transmissions. The beacon only activates when specific conditions are met. Admiral, Kyung-soo looked at Commander Wu Jin Song with a mixture of fear and disgust. And you are the thing we've been keeping asleep. The last ghost. I'm Commander Wu Jin Song, and I'm here to warn you that humanity is in grave danger. You're a relic from a war that nearly destroyed our species. A weapon that we decided was too dangerous to use. Lieutenant Bitnayun, the Admiral's military advisor, was studying Commander Wu Jin Song with professional interest. She was young, but smart, and she had read every classified file Earth Command possessed about the Ghost program. Admiral, she said quietly, the reports from the outer colonies have been troubling. 15 systems have stopped responding to communication in the past 6 months. Communication equipment fails, Admiral Kyung-soo said. It doesn't mean anything. Commander Wu Jin Song laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. 15 systems? It's already started. They're testing your defenses, seeing how long it takes you to notice when things disappear. Dr. Hyo-jun Kim stepped forward. Admiral, I've studied the records in the Forge of Wrath. The writings describe a war against something called the Devourers, something that erases entire civilizations from existence. Fairy tales and legends, Admiral Kyung-soo said. There are no records of such a war in our databases. Because they were deliberately destroyed, Commander Wu Jin Song said. After the war ended, humanity decided to forget. They couldn't live with the memory of what they had become to win. Lieutenant Bitnayun was working on her datapad, cross-referencing information. Admiral, I'm seeing patterns in the missing systems. They're not random failures. Something is moving through our space in a deliberate pattern. Show me, Admiral, Kyung-soo said. The holographic display showed the outer edge of human space. Red marks indicated the systems that had stopped communicating. When connected, they formed a clear line moving toward the core worlds. It could still be equipment failure, Admiral Kyung-soo said, but his voice was less certain. Commander Wu Jin-song studied the display. No, this is exactly how they operate. They start at the edges, consuming the weak and isolated systems first. Each conquest makes them stronger, and they use what they learn to make the next attack more effective. Communications specialist Da Yun-han approached the group. She had been monitoring long-range communications from her station. Admiral, I'm intercepting some disturbing reports from the border regions. Ships are finding empty colonies with no signs of battle, no bodies, and no indication of what happened to the people. Equipment malfunction, Admiral Kyung-soo said again. But now he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Admiral, Da Yun-han continued. 3 rescue ships sent to investigate these empty colonies have also gone silent. The last transmission from the rescue ship Morning Star was unusual. Define unusual. Da Yun-han played the recording. A voice came through the speakers, calm but wrong somehow. This is Captain Ross of the Morning Star. We have completed our investigation of the Harmony colony. There was never a colony here. There were never any people here. We are returning to base. The bridge fell silent. Commander Wu Jin-song nodded, grimly. Classic devourer technique. They don't just kill people. They make it as if those people never existed. The rescue ship captain probably has no memory of ever being sent to investigate a colony. As far as he's concerned, there never was a Harmony colony. Lieutenant Bitna Yoon was checking her records. But Admiral, we have files on the Harmony colony. Settlement records, population data, trade agreements. Commander Wu Jin-song looked at her sadly. Check again in a few hours. Those records will be gone or changed, or they'll contain information about empty systems that were never settled. Dr. Hyojun Kim was studying the data on his portable scanner. The implications are terrifying. If they can alter reality itself, or at least make people believe reality has been altered, how do we fight something like that? You become something that can't be altered, Commander Wu Jin-song said. You become something that exists outside of normal space and time. You become a ghost. Admiral Kyung-soo was looking at the display showing the missing systems. The red marks seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, counting down to something terrible. Even if I believed your story, what could we do? Our military is the most advanced in human history. Your military is designed to fight other humans or aliens that think and fight like humans, Commander Wu Jin-song said. The devourers don't fight. They consume. They turn your own weapons against you, corrupt your technology, and make your soldiers forget why they're fighting. Then how did humanity win the first war? Bitna Yoon asked. Commander Wu Jin-song was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. We became something worse than they were. The Ghost program didn't just enhance our bodies, it changed our minds. We learned to think like they do, to exist partially outside normal reality. We became predators that could hunt other predators. At what cost? Admiral Kyung-soo asked. Everything that made us human. We won the war, but we lost ourselves. The survivors volunteered for permanent sleep because we understood that we had become too dangerous to exist in normal society. The communication system activated again. Diane Han's face was pale as she reported. Admiral, I'm receiving emergency signals from 3 more systems. The signals are confused. One moment they're reporting attacks, the next they're saying everything is normal. Commander Wu Jin-song moved to the communication station. Let me hear them. The signals were chaotic. Voices pleaded for help, then suddenly became calm and reported that no help was needed. Some transmissions cut off mid-sentence, only to resume with completely different messages. They're in the feeding process, Commander Wu Jin-song explained. The devourers don't just destroy, they corrupt reality around their victims. Time becomes fluid, cause and effect break down, and memory becomes unreliable. How long do we have? Admiral Kyung-soo asked quietly. At their current rate of advancement, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. Earth itself will be under attack within a year. Dr. Hyojun Kim looked up from his analysis. Commander, in your war, how many humans became ghosts? 50. 1,000 volunteers from across all human colonies. By the end of the war, less than 100 of us survived. And you won? We didn't win. We made the Devourers decide that consuming humanity cost more than it was worth. They retreated to the dark spaces between galaxies to recover and plan a new approach. Lieutenant Bitna Yoon was running calculations on her datapad. If they've been planning for 500 years, what kind of improvements have they made? Unknown. But they're moving faster now, more efficiently. They've learned from their first encounter with humanity. Admiral Kyung-soo stared at the display showing the advancing threat. Red marks now covered nearly a quarter of the outer colonies, and the pattern was accelerating toward the inner systems. If I authorize the awakening of the Forge of Wrath, he said slowly, what would happen? Commander Woo Jin-song met his eyes. Humanity would survive, but humanity would also change forever. The Ghost program doesn't just create soldiers, it creates a new species. One designed to survive in a universe where mercy is extinction and compassion is suicide. And if we try to fight them with conventional forces, then in 1 year's time, there will be no record that humanity ever existed. No monuments, no ruins, no memory. We will become nothing, just like all the other species the Devourers have consumed. The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Everyone was thinking about the same terrible choice: remain human and face extinction, or become something else and survive. Commander Woo Jin-song looked around at all of them. The choice is yours, Admiral, but choose quickly. Every day you delay, more of your people disappear, and soon, even you won't remember they ever existed. The shuttle docked with the ancient structure through an airlock that somehow recognized their approach. The doors opened by themselves, as if the structure was welcoming them inside. Taemin, Dr. Hyo-jun Kim, and Ji-won stepped into a corridor that stretched far beyond their flashlight beams. The air is breathable, Ji-won announced after checking her readings. Old, but clean. The life support systems are still working after all these centuries. They removed their helmets and began exploring. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were covered in symbols and writing that Dr. Hyo-jun Kim studied with growing excitement. This is incredible, he whispered, running his fingers along the carved symbols. These writings tell a story, but it's not like any human history I know. It talks about a great war, about humanity fighting something terrible. What kind of something? Taemin asked. The symbols are hard to translate, but they keep using words that mean darkness that eats and the hungry void. Whatever they fought, it consumed things. They continued deeper into the structure. Every few hundred meters, they passed chambers filled with what looked like sleeping pods. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all empty and open. Someone left in a hurry, Ji-won observed. These pods were opened all at the same time, from the inside. Dr. Hyo-jun Kim was reading more symbols on the walls. According to this place was called the Forge of Wrath. It was some kind of military installation. Military for what? Taemin asked. For creating something called Ghosts of War, soldiers who gave up their humanity to fight an enemy that couldn't be fought by normal means. They reached the center of the structure, a massive chamber with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. In the middle of the chamber stood a single sleeping pod, different from all the others. This one was still closed, still humming with power. That's our life sign, Ji-won said, checking her scanner. Whatever is in there is still alive. The pod was covered in warnings written in the same ancient human language. Dr. Hyo-jun Kim read them aloud. Do not wake unless the darkness returns. Do not wake unless all hope is lost. Do not wake unless humanity faces extinction. Cheerful, Taemin muttered. Ji-won was studying the pod's control systems. Captain, this technology is amazing. The person inside has been in perfect preservation for centuries, maybe longer. But the power systems are failing. If we don't do something soon, they'll die. Can you wake them up safely? Taemin asked. Think so. The controls are complex, but I can figure them out. Dr. Hyo-jun Kim looked worried. Captain, maybe we should think about this. All these warnings suggest that whoever is in there was put to sleep for a very good reason, and left to die when their power ran out? Tai Min shook his head. No, we wake them up. Everyone deserves a chance to live. Jiwon worked on the pod's controls for 20 minutes before the systems finally responded. There was a soft hiss as the pod began to open. Mist poured out, and slowly a figure became visible inside. It was a man, appearing to be in his 30s, wearing a military uniform unlike anything in their history books. His eyes opened suddenly, and he sat up fast, looking around the chamber, with the quick movements of a trained soldier. "Report," he said in a voice that expected to be obeyed. Then he paused, looking confused. "Who are you? Where is my unit?" "I'm Captain Taemin Park of the human ship Serenity's Edge. This is Dr. Hyojun Kim and Engineer Jiwon Choi. Who are you?" The man stood up slowly, testing his balance. "Commander Woojin Song, 5th Battalion, Ghost Division, Human Colonial. Defense Force." He paused again, looking more confused. "What year is it?" Dr. Hyojun Kim told him the current date. Commander Woojin Song's face went white. 500 years, he whispered. "I've been asleep for 500 years. He looked around the empty chamber. "Where is everyone? Where are my soldiers?" "All the other pods were empty when we arrived," Taemin said gently. "You were the only one left." Commander Woojin Song closed his eyes for a moment, pain clear on his face. When he opened them again, he was all business. "If I'm awake, it means the automated systems detected something. The Forge of Wrath only wakes its guardian when humanity is in danger." He looked directly at Taemin. "Tell me, Captain, have you encountered anything that consumes entire worlds? Something that turns technology against itself?" "No, nothing like that. We just heard your distress signal and came to help." "Distress signal?" Commander Woojin Song looked confused again. "The Forge doesn't send distress signals, it sends warnings." His face became grim. "If the systems activated the warning beacon, it means they're back. The Devourers have returned." "The Devourers?" Dr. Hyojun Kim asked. "That's what we called them. Others called them the Void Spawn, the Hungry Dark, or simply the End. They were a species that consumed other species not for food, but for the joy of destruction. They didn't just kill civilizations. They erased them from history itself." Jiwon was scanning Commander Woojin Song with her medical scanner. "Captain, his readings are strange. He's human, but there are differences, improvements." "Commander," Woojin Song noticed the scanner. "I volunteered for the Ghost program. We all did. The Devourers couldn't be fought by normal humans, so we became something else, something that could hunt the hunters." "What happened to them?" "The Devourers?" Taemin asked. "We won, but barely. The war lasted 50 years and nearly destroyed humanity. When it was over, the decision was made to erase all records of the conflict. Humanity didn't want to remember what we had become to win. The survivors went into sleep waiting in case the enemy ever returned." Commander Woojin Song walked to a control panel on the wall and began entering commands. Information flowed across the screen faster than they could read. "The Forge has been monitoring space for centuries," he explained. "Its sensors cover half the galaxy. According to these readings, entire star systems have gone dark in the past year. The pattern matches Devourer attacks." "That's impossible," Dr. Hyojun Kim said. "We would have heard about entire systems disappearing. Would you?" Commander Woojin Song asked quietly. "The Devourers don't just destroy things. They make it as if those things never existed. People forget about the missing systems. Records disappear. Only the most advanced monitoring systems can detect their presence." Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the chamber. Commander Woojin Song's face became stone. "They know I'm awake. The Devourers can sense when their old enemies stir. They'll be coming to finish what they started 500 years ago." Through their communication system, Subin's voice came through clearly. "Captain, we have incoming ships, lots of them. They're human, but they're not answering our signals." Taemin activated his communicator. "Subin, how many ships?" 50, maybe more. Big ones. They just dropped out of jump space and they're heading straight for us." Commander Wu Jinsong was already moving toward the corridor. Earth Command. They've been watching this place for centuries, waiting for someone to wake me up. They're terrified of what the Forge represents. Why would Earth Command be afraid of their own military installation? G1 asked. Because the Forge of Wrath and the Ghost program represent everything humanity had to become to survive the First War. And Earth Command has spent 500 years making sure nobody remembers that war ever happened. They ran through the corridors back to their shuttle. As they moved, Commander Wu Jinsong explained more. The humans who survived the war were changed forever. We weren't just soldiers anymore, we were living weapons. When the war ended, normal humans were terrified of us, so we agreed to sleep until we were needed again. And now you're needed? If the Devourers are back, then yes. The question is whether humanity will accept help from monsters like us, or whether they'll try to handle this threat with normal methods. And if they try normal methods? Commander Wu Jinsong's smile was cold and sharp. Then humanity will cease to exist just like all the other species the Devourers have consumed. The only way to fight monsters is to become something even more monstrous. As they reached their shuttle, more alarms began ringing throughout the ancient structure. The Forge of Wrath was fully awake now, its systems coming online after centuries of sleep. And somewhere in the darkness of space, something ancient and hungry was stirring, drawn by the scent of its old enemies awakening. Captain Taemin Park stared at the endless black space through the window of his ship. The Serenity's edge moved slowly through the empty region near the edge of the galaxy. For 3 months they had been mapping this dead zone. No stars, no planets, nothing but cold darkness. "Captain, we're getting something strange," called Subin Lee from her seat at the communication station. Her fingers danced over the controls, trying to make sense of the signals coming through her headset. Taemin walked over to her station. Subin had been his communication officer for 2 years. She was good at her job and never got excited over nothing. If she said something was strange, it was worth checking. "What kind of strange?" he asked. Subin frowned at her screen. "It's a distress signal, but not like any I've seen before. The frequency is all wrong. It's using patterns that shouldn't exist." "Show me," Taemin said. The main screen filled with wave patterns and data streams. Even to Taemin's trained eye, it looked wrong. The signal seemed to twist and bend in ways that hurt to look at for too long. "How long has this been transmitting?" he asked. "That's the weird part," Subin said. "The signal strength suggests it's been going for a very long time, maybe centuries. But it just started showing up on our sensors an hour ago." Dr. Hyojun Kim looked up from his research station across the bridge. He was their expert on old things, ancient cultures, and dead languages. "Can you clean up the signal, make it clearer?" Subin worked her magic on the controls. Slowly, the static cleared, and something that might have been a voice came through the speakers. It was broken and hard to understand, but some words were clear. "Help? Anyone. The darkness comes, can't hold, much longer." Dr. Hyojun Kim stood up quickly, his chair rolling backward. "That's impossible." "What's impossible?" Taemin asked. "Those words, the language pattern. It's old human dialect mixed with something else. But it's older than our oldest records. This signal is coming from something that shouldn't exist." Taemin felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In space, impossible things were usually dangerous things. "Where is it coming from?" Subin checked her readings. "About 6 light hours from here, deeper into the dead zone. But Captain, there's nothing on our charts. This area is supposed to be completely empty." "Maybe our charts are wrong," said engineer Jiwon Choi from her station. She was young but smart, and she kept their ship running perfectly. "Want me to prep the jump drive?" Taemin thought about it. Earth Command had sent them to map this region, not to investigate strange signals. But that voice in the transmission sounded desperate. Human or not, someone was asking for help. "What does the signal look like on long-range sensors?" he asked. Subin worked her controls again. "It's coming from something big, Captain, really big. Whatever is transmitting this signal is at least 10 times the size of our ship." Dr. Hyojun Kim was still staring at the translated text on his screen. "Captain, I'm seeing word patterns here that match legends from the first expansion period, stories about humanity's early spread into space, but all those records were lost, centuries ago. Lost or destroyed? Taemin asked. Unknown. The official story is that the records were corrupted by a computer virus, but some researchers think they were deliberately erased. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Taemin looked at each of his crew members. Subin was still trying to clean up the signal. Jiwon was ready to fire up the engines at his command. Dr. Hyojun Kim was deep in thought, probably trying to solve a puzzle that was centuries old. Captain, Subin said softly, the signal is getting weaker. Whatever is transmitting it is losing power. Taemin made his decision. Jiwon, set course for the signal source, best possible speed. Sir, Earth Command expects us to report in 12 hours, Subin reminded him. If we investigate this, we'll miss our check-in time. Then we'll deal with that later, Taemin said. Someone is asking for help. We're going to answer. The Serenity's edge turned toward the source of the signal and jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars outside became long streaks of light, then disappeared entirely as they entered the strange physics of jump space. When they dropped back into normal space 6 hours later, everyone on the bridge gasped. Floating in the darkness ahead of them was a structure so massive it blocked out the stars behind it. It wasn't shaped like any ship Taemin had ever seen. It was more like a city that someone had built in space, all sharp angles and dark metal. My God, whispered Dr. Hyojun Kim. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The structure was dark except for a few weak lights scattered across its surface. It looked dead, but their sensors said otherwise. Deep inside the massive construction, something was still active. Are you getting any more transmissions? Taemin asked Subin. Negative, Captain. The signal stopped when we dropped out of jump space, but I'm reading power sources inside that thing. Weak ones, but they're there. Any signs of life? Subin checked her instruments carefully. Hard to tell with all the metal in the way, but, Captain, I think I'm reading a single life sign. Very faint, very deep inside the structure. Jiwon was studying the construction with her engineer's eye. Captain, this thing is old, really old. But the technology, I've never seen anything like it. It's human in design, but more advanced than anything we have today. How is that possible? Taemin asked. I don't know, sir. But whoever built this was way ahead of us in terms of technology. Dr. Hyojun Kim was practically bouncing in his seat with excitement. Captain, we have to go aboard. This could be the archaeological find of the century, maybe of all time. Taemin studied the structure on the main screen. It was beautiful, in its own way, but something about it felt wrong. It felt like a tomb or maybe a prison. The few lights on its surface flickered like dying candles. Subin, any response to our standard greeting signals? Nothing, Captain. Whatever is inside isn't answering. But something is alive in there? The readings suggest yes, sir. One life sign, very weak. Taemin made another decision that would change everything. Jiwon, prepare the shuttle. We're going aboard. Sir, regulations require us to wait for backup before boarding an unknown structure, Subin said. Regulations also require us to render aid to anyone in distress, Taemin replied. And that signal was definitely a distress call. As Jiwon prepared their small shuttle for the trip across to the mysterious structure, Dr. Hyojun Kim continued, studying the readings from their sensors. Captain, he said quietly, I'm seeing symbols on that structure. They're carved into the metal itself. Some of them match symbols from the oldest human records we have, but others I've never seen before. What do you think it means? I think whoever built this wanted to make sure it would last forever, and I think they wanted to make sure that if humans ever found it, they would recognize it as something important. The shuttle was ready. Taemin, Dr. Hyojun Kim, and Jiwon put on their spacesuits and prepared to cross to the massive structure. As they sealed their helmets, Subin called from the communication station. Captain, our sensors just picked up something new. That life sign I detected, it just got stronger. Whatever is alive in there knows we're here. Taemin felt that cold feeling in his stomach again. But there was no turning back now. Someone was waiting for help in that ancient structure, and he was going to provide it. He had no way of knowing that his decision would wake something that had been sleeping for centuries, something that would change the fate of all humanity.